it affected me personally in that I'm sure it denied me opportunities, and it also insulted me. I mean, that same CBS that had given me all these wonderful opportunities didn't hesitate to ask me to sign loyalty oaths. That took strong exceptions. Um, it it affected me more in my relationship to my fellow performers and Paul Robeson, in a sense than I felt personally. Although there was a time Rube and I was summoned to come down to Center Street and answer to the committee whether we were communists or not. We went through all of that stuff.
This is during McCarthyism?
Yeah, but we somehow could brave it. You see, being black and having lived in the South with the Ku Klux Klan and people, always insisting you're a second-class citizen and a spy, the committees weren't all that strange to us. But it was to our white friends who had no idea of how mean and evil these things could be, some of whom died or killed themselves. This is what affected us.
Simply because they were accused?
Yes. As black folks, we say, well, white folks going crazy again, but they'll be back shortly, so let's keep the thing rolling. It was a horrible time. One of our friends, and he got to be friends, worked on CBS, John Henry Falk, who lost his job on the radio because of the blacklist. And Ruby and he were involved in an election which put them into red channels and all kind of things happened. So we got to be friends as we joined forces to try and fight against the blacklist. And John Henry Falk was almost like a member of the family.
So politically, you were active in
Oh yes, oh yes. We never hid the fact, that we had commitments in relationship to friends. We knew we weren't any traitors. We knew we weren't carrying bombs. We knew that who Paul Robeson was and what he stood for. We knew W.E.B. Du Bois and what he stood for. And these were people for whom we would put our lives on the line if it was required. We loved them and respected them that much, and we still do. Felt very strongly about that.
Did you sign loyalty oaths?
No.
But the network wanted you to.
Well, when the jobs came along, what was required? That you signed a loyalty oath. But there was no offering of jobs from CBS for us at that time that I remember. But we wouldn't have signed, had they offered it, that kind of nonsense. The NBC didn't require a loyalty oath, but man, the other ways they had of filtering you out, there was a time when a lawyer friend of ours, was talking about suing NBC because of that. Nothing ever came of it. But if you may not remember because you were very young, but these awful things took place at the same time some most exciting things were happening in the world, and in Asia and in Africa, and the Bandung Conference, and Nehru, and Robeson, and these people who strode the world stage like giants. We over here, embroiled in this cruddy blacklisting thing, while overseas, huge human beings, were accomplishing things. So we, in our relationship to them, drew inspiration that helped us fight against these things here. We were sort of internationalist in our response.
And while this was going on, there was the Committee of Un-American Activities.
Yeah.
Did you witness any of those hearings?
I was called to them. I was, on one occasion, the young man who stood up and asked Equity to join in the fight to secure Paul Robeson's passport. Well, all hell broke loose. The union at that time, everybody in the union knew Paul and loved him, but it was death to hold your hand up in support of Paul Robeson. So the furor, as a result of that one meeting, got down to Washington, D.C., and they said, we better send a committee up there to sort of show Broadway, where its best interests lie. The committee came to town, issued subpoenas, Ruby and I got subpoenas. We went downtown. I testified. Ruby didn't. Once again, another of those humorous incidents. Time came to go downtown to testify. We couldn't find a babysitter. And the babies were here. And I said, Ruby, we got to go. She said, I ain't leaving my babies. So I went down and told the powers that be that here I am, but my wife is at home. As soon as she finds a babysitter, she'll be sitting, she'll be here. So they got me in, and they asked me, are you a communist or not? And I said, no, but I have a statement I wanted. He said, are we a communist? No. Well, get down, please. Get him out. Nobody wanted to hear from me. So I left, and then, but Ruby hadn't shown up. So finally, almost at the end of the hearing, I looked down, and here comes Ruby up the steps. So I go to the woman who's running the hearings. I said, here's Ruby, here's Ruby. She's here, and I said, really, to testify? And the woman's name was Scotty. She said, look, well, tell her, some other time. We ain't got time for all that nonsense. So there we were, ready to make brave statements to the world.
Bold statements.
Absolutely. And nobody was listening. So Ruby and I laughed about this. But there were other people who didn't laugh, because it was too horrendous for them.
Bad time in American history.
It was a bad time. And the danger is that we can forget it and produce this situation where such a bad time will come again. I hope we're smart enough not to. But there's no guarantee that we won't.